Thought it was on. There we go. It's 6 o'clock, so it's time for the December City of Beavercreek Planning Commission meeting, and we're going to have to delay for just a couple of minutes because two of our members are having trouble finding a place to park. So as soon as they get here, we do not have a quorum right now, so as soon as we get here, or as soon as they get here, we will be underway. So talk amongst yourselves, and I'll gavel again when they get here. Folks, I'm sorry, we are fresh out of chairs, but if you would like to pretend you're a reporter and want to sit on the floor, so as long as you don't block the podium, there's a little bit of space right up here up front, and I apologize, we can't expand the room. Okay, folks, so this doesn't last all night. Let's get underway. Thank you. If you would read our roll, please.
Mr. Ayers?
Here.
Mr. Diker is absent. Mr. Loftus?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Self?
Here. And I would like a motion to excuse our missing member.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to excuse the missing member. Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, and we'll do that by general consensus. Thank you. Agenda approval. I think we've got a couple of minor changes here. Nothing to affect y'all.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, 5C, the racetrack date and rezoning, I'd like to move that up to before the Turner rezoning because the applicant sent me an email yesterday requesting the case be tabled until the January meeting. So the racetrack is not, they requested not be heard tonight and continue on to the January meeting.
Okay.
So again, move it up in the agenda so they don't have to wait.
Correct. Approval of the agenda as amended, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
And we'll do that by general consensus. Thank you very much. Minutes from last month. Any additions, corrections, etc.? Guess what I'm going to need?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the November commission meeting.
Mr. Chair, I second.
And we'll do that by general consensus. Thank
I'll
you.
abstain. I was not here.
Oh, that's all right. We still have a quorum. Okay, the first item on our public hearing tonight is PUD 23-3 Camco rezoning. For that one, the applicant has requested that case be tabled until the January meeting. So if you are here for that, never mind. Come back for the January meeting. You'll be notified. So I need a motion to table this.
Mr. Chair, I would move to table PUD 23-3.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
And we'll do that by consensus. Thank you very much. Okay, racetrack, same thing. The applicant has asked for that to be tabled till the January meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to table PUD 23-5.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
-4.
-4.
-4, yes.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, and by general consensus. So if you're here for the racetrack public hearing, that will be also next month. So we are down to PUD 23-5.
This is case number PUD 23-5 on an application filed by Grand Communities LLC, 3940 Olympic Boulevard, Suite 400, Erlanger, Kentucky 41018. The application requests approval to rezone 46.864 acres from A1 agricultural to RPUD residential plan unit development. The property is located on the north side of Swaggart Road, 800 feet east of the intersection of Swaggart Road and Darst Road, further described as Book 3, page 24, Parcel 1 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. Since this is a public hearing, I'll give you the cliff notes on how we work these. The first thing is the applicant will give us a presentation. Then the staff will give their staff report. Once that's done, we'll open the public hearing to public comment. We'll hear everybody that wants to speak. You are limited to 3 minutes, and we will time you, or we'll be here all night. If you are particularly verbose and someone would like to cede their 3 minutes to you, we can do that, but up to a limit of 9 minutes. And if you can't say it in 9 minutes, I'm sorry. And then once the public hearing has been closed, we'll see if there was any written input. Once that is done, we'll close the public hearing, and we will discuss amongst ourselves and hopefully come up with a decision. So, without further ado, I'm sure there's someone here representing the applicant. Step right on up and tell us what you have in mind.
Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Sam Reese. I'm a land planner with Fisher Homes Grant Communities. This is a rezoning request for for the Turning property in Beavercreek, Ohio. Gotcha. So a little bit about us at Fisher Homes. We are a privately owned Cincinnati-based home builder founded in 1980. Currently operate in 9 markets across 6 states. One of the things we pride ourselves in is maintaining our high customer satisfaction rate by creating the best total new home experience for our customers. So looking at the context of this site, consists of 1 parcel, just over 46 acres, currently zoned A1 agricultural, and it is located off Swaggart Road, and is also located directly adjacent to Walnut Grove Park and just south of Fairfield Downs subdivision. Again, the site's currently zoned A1 agricultural. Many of the properties directly north of our site are zoned single-family residential, and the property directly west is zoned residential PUD. And we are requesting to rezone this site from A1 agricultural to residential PUD. Some of the constraints with the site. The site itself is relatively flat. There are existing communities that directly border the site to the north and west, and there also is a property owner to the southeast end of our property. And this is just an aerial of the property looking south, and an aerial of the property looking east. And so our vision. So as you can see, we have a draft concept plan of our proposed development, but this is still in the early stages. We have a total of 96 home sites in this plan. With our proposed zoning, we have a maximum density of 2.1 units per acre and a minimum lot width of 60 feet. Some of the lots do have larger rear yard setbacks than normal. Those lots are highlighted in the purple and orange, so the lots that are directly backing up to the neighboring subdivisions. These rear yard setbacks were established to be consistent with those of the neighboring communities. And then lastly, we do have a total building separation of 15 feet, so 5 feet minimum each side yard setback. So looking at our proposed product for this community, this is our designer collection, this single family detached project. This product is geared more towards the move-up home buyers, so people with young and growing families who are looking to upsize from their previous homes. And this is our masterpiece collection, also a single-family detached home. This is one of our higher-end products, features larger homes, larger home sites, and this is a step up from what our designer collection is. So one of the other things we pride ourselves in is our community design and creating a sense of place for our communities. We do that through our theming, our landscaping, and amenity design. And with this community in particular, we're looking into more towards a garden theme for the community. And that's shown in the graphics on the screen. So next steps would be city council approval and then site plan review and approval. I thank you all so much for your time, and I will happily take any questions that staff may have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Staff's turn now.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. The case you have before you is PUD 23-5, Turner property rezoning. Specifically, the applicant's requesting to rezone approximately 47 acres from A1 agricultural to an RPUD, and this is to allow for the development of a single-family residential neighborhood. Just wanted to briefly go over the PUD process as a whole. The PUD process is a two-step process. One is the rezoning, where we go over the generalities, the uses, some conditions and densities, and maybe some setbacks. And then phase two, which is the second separate action, is where we look at architectural plans, we look at the site plan and how the roads are laid out, landscaping, screening, buffering. I know that the site plan or the concept plan that was submitted with this packet's a little bit more detailed than what we generally would see at the rezoning phase. So I just wanted to reiterate that this is still the rezoning phase. Actually, we're one step before that. We're at the Planning Commission. So we're at the very first step of the first phase of the project. Next. Okay. The project's located in the far southern end of Beavercreek. It is approximately 47 acres. It's about 1,600 feet wide and about 800 feet deep. It has about 2,000 feet of frontage on Swigert Road. And then there is a single-family residential property that's near the south center of that farm. The property is currently zoned, as is stated, A1 agricultural. The property to the immediately southwest is R1A single family. Then the properties to the west are RPUD with R1B underlying. That's how it was done back in the 80s. Was the PUD was established, and then the underlying was establishing the uses and the setbacks and the size requirements. To the north is R1A, single-family residential, and then there is some A1 to the north. Seen here is a zoom in of the city's land use plan. Based on the land use plan, it's classified as low-density residential in this area and everywhere in the vicinity of it, other than the public park that's to the immediately west of this property. What low-density residential is defined as in the land use plan is either single-family, multifamily, so long as the density is not greater than 3.1, or it's not greater than 3 dwelling units an acre. So anything less than 3.01 dwelling units an acre is compatible with the land use plan. Seen here is the concept plan. Again, this is a lot more detailed than what we generally see a concept plan. You can see, but I just wanted to point out that they show 5 access points to the site, the main access being off of Swigert Road, and then access points to each of the existing stub streets that are in the neighborhoods to the west and to the north. The land use plan calls for when the development of this property should occur, it calls for a connection to those stub streets, and the connection does promote good interconnectivity between this neighborhood, the existing neighborhoods, and the proposed neighborhood, as well as alternative routes for users of the existing neighborhood, of the future neighborhood, and the emergency services that may or may need to go through into the existing neighborhood or the future neighborhood. Just wanted to go over a few of the conditions outlined in the resolution for your consideration this evening. One is, again, that it be rezoned to RPUD. The uses permitted within this PUD should only be single-family homes, so no duplexes, no multifamily. And then there are conditional uses that are allowed in R1A districts, any straight R1A districts, such as places of religious assembly, nursery or daycare, or assisted living, and those would be approved as conditional uses. And the intent of that is, if they're approved as conditional uses, then before they could build the place of religious assembly or assisted living or the nursery daycare, they'd have to come back to Planning Commission and present a site plan. It's not just put a church on the corner and call it a day. So they would have to present a site plan and elevations to this board for approval. Also, the max density allowed, it's called for in the resolution. I just want to confirm that. Give me 1 second here. And I have the resolution. Okay, in the resolution, it calls for 2.1 dwelling units an acre. So up there it says 2.2. I just wanted to confirm it should be 2.1 dwelling units an acre. That's a round up from what they're proposing at 96 units on the lot, on the site. Also, a few other conditions. One is that the minimum lot width is 60 feet. That's what's called in the RPUD section of the zoning code. However, the lots that are adjacent to R1A, so that's up on the north end, and on that map there to the right, I've boxed it in yellow, that they be at least 20,000 square feet, so it's a half acre, and that matches the R1A district to the north. The lots on the west end, which I highlighted in orange or circled in orange, be at least 16,000 square feet, and that matches the minimum lot size in the RPUDs along that property line. All building setbacks, or the proposed building setbacks, will be 30-foot front yard for the entire development, 35-foot minimum rear yard, except the lots that are along the R1A, which will match the R1A rear yard setback of 50 feet, and the lots along the R1B RPUD is 40 feet, which matches those rear yard setbacks. Also, a 5-foot minimum yard setback, 5-foot minimum side yard setback, and no building be closer than 15 feet to each other. On the lots that would share a side yard with either the R1A or the R1B, that would be increased to 10 feet on each side. So that you couldn't put the house 5 feet from the property line. It has to be at least 10 feet on that particular end. Also, a condition in the proposed resolution is that any future site plan, again, just to reiterate, this is phase 1, so phase 2 is a site plan where we go over the specific layout and how stormwater detention relates to the site and how grading relates to the site and landscaping. But any future site plan needs to show a 25-foot grading limit on the north and the western property lines, except obviously where the street connections are. And that grading limit will be in place so long as that particular lot doesn't have a homeowner, and once it goes to the homeowner, then it reverts back to the homeowner can do as they will with it. Again, stormwater is not really under this step of the process, but I just wanted to point out that any stormwater runoff that should be generated in the future as part of the site plan, it cannot exacerbate any existing stormwater issues that are in the surrounding neighborhood. It has to detain all of its additional stormwater runoff on site and can't increase any the velocity at which stormwater runs off the site currently. And just a general idea of the city's role in development, and this is on our website. For many, many years, the city, me, and a lot of other people in the city have heard that we just need to stop development. We don't want development. We want the woods. We want to preserve the open space. Zoning is not intended to stop development. The only way to stop development is if the city owns the property. Zoning is just intended to guide development, so it ensures that you look back at the land use plan, and because this is designated low-density residential, it ensures that they're not trying, we wouldn't recommend approval of rezoning to put a shopping center back there or a industrial complex in that area. We also, because the schools are a separate taxing entity and a separate political entity, that we can't consider the school impact on new residential properties. Also, traffic impacts, they can't be a reason to deny a rezoning application. If they were used, it would be because the only way to use that is if the city were to do its own traffic study and show in that traffic study that it would have a detrimental effect to the area. So the idea that just because we think the traffic's going to be worse is not a reason that the Planning Commission or City Council can deny a rezoning request. Staff does recommend approval of the applicant's requests. You will find the conditions in the resolution. Our recommendation is subject to those conditions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions following the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our usual staff, very comprehensive report. Now, we will open the public hearing. I would ask, I would.
Want to go first?
Okay, that's just fine. Just hang on for a second.
Small chairs.
I have my sympathies. I have just a couple of requests of you all. Before we get started, we will hear everybody that wishes to speak, so don't worry about that. If you're standing out in the hall and you want to speak, just kind of weasel your way in and raise your hand. I would, though, ask that you limit your comments to the rezoning. What you saw as a con plan has really nothing to do with what will be presented when we go to the specific site plan. So what we're discussing tonight is rezoning this from agricultural to residential. So please keep that in mind. It's not the site plan yet. You will have a public hearing on that, and y'all be able to speak as much as you want for that. I would also ask, I know there are going to be some deathless prose shared tonight, but hold your applause so we can make this thing go a little faster. And also, I would ask that be succinct in your comments. If someone else has gotten up and said the same thing that you're going to say, you just say to yourself, rats, somebody's already gotten it. If you want to just come up and say ditto to what Mr. Smith said, that's fine. But don't go through the whole thing again, or we will be here till midnight. Trust me, I've been there. So without further ado, I had a gentleman raise his hand. Come right on up.
Thank you. I have to go back to work, so.
If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Christian Wolford. I reside at 291 Redwood Boulevard. I've lived there 9 years. I just wanted to, I don't have a problem with rezoning with respect to the Turner family. They're entitled to sell their property. I would expect a farmer in this day and age to get out of the business. That is an eyesore for the community, and that they have the right to sell and get fair market value. And I'm not opposed to it, but I think that we have to be very considerate. And I know the gentleman referenced the traffic plan. I sat in another zoning meeting with the co-city, Dumb and Dumber, Bellbrook, and they did a traffic study between 12 and 1 on a Wednesday. Now, I work for the government, and if you go to the base or you come from the base between 8 and 4:30, getting into South Beavercreek or Bellbrook is impossible. And I would only request that the city really consider a traffic plan. You're going to add 200 cars based on the structure count right now. 98 houses, that's 200 cars, okay? Bellbrook keeps building, and they keep lying and breaking their building plan. And so it is getting worse. And this is going to make things much more difficult. The Swigart-Darce fiasco, the black family farm that was sold, and they're building 184 houses there, there's 300 cars right there. Nobody goes into Bellbrook on Wilmington Pike after 4 o'clock. It makes no sense. So everyone now is getting off Green, at the Green exit, and they're coming down Darce, and then they're coming from the Darce-Sweegart intersection. I go in really early because I just don't trust crowds. And I think, yes, you should approve it, but I think you really need to consider how this is built with respect to streets, because there's no way another 200 cars is going to make any one of us any happier. Second point, I think that the houses, as far as size and space, should represent the communities that they're connecting to. I live on Redwood. It's a nice community. There's plenty of space, and now you're going to stack these houses. If you lived in a nice neighborhood and then you go over 2 blocks and they're on top of each other, was that what you want? We didn't want the Darce-Sweegart mess, and they're bigger than what this gentleman's proposing. And, you know, I'm all about paying more taxes, right? I mean, at one point, we have to look in totality in Beavercreek as far as building. And you told me I can't talk about the schools. That's fine. And we can't talk about that. But at the end of the day, it's a body count. And you guys, we're building too much, too fast. The superintendent's driving the bus for the schools because they can't get enough people. So I just, at one point, Bellbrook had a 10-year plan, and they blew through it in 3 years. Fair enough. Thank you for your time.
My clocks went off here.
No, that's fair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll do one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I just asked that if you're going to rezone,
Before we start, who was that donated 3 minutes? Could you give the secretary your name, please?
you guys will get me in trouble.
Gellnar.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. You're very kind. We went through this fight with Bellbrook, and the answers they gave us were, if we don't do it, they'll annex. This zoning did a great thing off of Grange Hall, 17 acres of a beautiful park. If you see, you know, you guys are putting in that wonderful park on the way when you head north. I would ask that, why wouldn't the board consider, instead of zoning for residential, ask the community if they're willing to pay to turn that into a park, not a residential? Has that ever been considered? Green space is goodness. Concrete, more roads, maybe not. You really did a great thing there. Well, why can't we discuss that? Can we talk about giving Turner family fair market value and consider that as a park and not more houses? Because the city is blowing up. I remember, I'm from Huber Heights. I remember driving through the backways on a 2-lane road to go to a movie theater in Beavercreek. I got recruited to play for Wright State when they were building the Nutter. And then I went away for the military and I came home. And now it's just out of control. And so I ask you to consider, do you need more houses? Do we have to keep building? Okay? That's all I'm saying. I appreciate your time. Thank you for the additional minutes. I'll get out of here. I got to go back to work. Thanks.
Thank you. You guys aren't listening. Okay, who's next? Al, go ahead. We go to church together. That's how come I know him.
Yeah, I have question number one. Is it?
Al, name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Al Gottwald. I live on West Wind Drive.
I know him, but she doesn't.
Okay. Question number one, the 2.1 units per acre, that tells me about a half an acre per unit. Is that an average, or so each unit has got to be approximately half an acre?
It's overall. So there's some that are bigger, some are smaller, and it includes
Okay. That was question number one, of which explains my next question. When we received our letters from the city, it referred us to a website. I don't know if you could pull up the map that was the neighborhood, the site map that was and I understand it's not being, that's not what we received. What we received, the units are on micro lots. And the reason that a lot of people are here tonight is because of the map that was referred to us at the website. This is scary as hell.
Al, we're talking about zoning here,
I under-
not the site plan. So
Understand.
let's keep on track.
I just wanted, the question that I had is, which is, if the site map is not part of the discussion tonight, why was it on the website for us to look at? Because that map scared the crap out of us. Yeah, it looked like, where you're looking at less than a quarter acre or an eighth acre per unit. And ditto to what he said.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Felicia Reinhardt. I live at 3805 Maple Grove Lane. I've lived there for 3 years. I kind of knew that this was coming. We've heard little rumblings. We even, like, to echo the first gentleman that spoke, we've talked in our neighborhood about, hey, can we all chip in and buy it and do something else with it? I really encourage you, please consider something like that for green space. I know that we've been talking amongst ourselves about Springhouse Park, and we were so happy to see more green space, so we'd love to see that. I did do some research and saw that the last traffic study was in 2019 that had to do with Darst, and that was before any of the homes were occupied on the Belisara development. We know that's in Sugar Creek. Those have 7,000 square foot lots. There's about 200 homes there, and it's very dangerous right now. I won't go into that. We all work at the base, or a lot of us work at the base, so we go through that. We know nobody is getting off at Wilmington Pike because that is just a real nightmare at the end of the day. Another thing I'd bring up is the drainage issues. We have on Maple Grove on both sides in the backyards, there is drainage issues. We already spent significant money when I moved in to alleviate it. I heard there's some easements back there that have not been maintained. But it's almost like a river when it gets really wet. There's also some creeks running through. I don't see anything that's going to address that existing issue. I would love it if the council would look into that drainage specifically with respect to what it would do if you turn space that's green into occupied space. I know this is only the zoning part of it, but there can't be only one ingress and outgress. Maple Grove Lane will be the road that people come down to get to the green, to get to 675. The only person that's going to go out that side exit is going out to Xenia or maybe North Fairfield. So concerned with the property value of these smaller size lots that are going in. And I think you talk about a traffic study that we would have to pay for it. I don't understand why the developer would not have to pay for it, but maybe that's zoning law that I don't understand. But if we already have issues, then there's a lot of people. I hope the people that live on Swigert will talk about how dangerous it already is. I did hear from a neighbor, and I'm sorry if I'm taking your thunder, that they're not even considering the blind curve as part of the traffic, alleviating the traffic on the blind curve on Darst that goes around towards the Belisara neighborhood. That's already dangerous. That's right past Maple Grove. So I encourage you to look at those items. I really would encourage a study or maybe a survey of the community to see. I certainly would donate money towards a green space solution. I think a lot of people in our neighborhood would. Like I said, we sat around the fire pit talking about this, but we didn't have enough people there. But I think if it was more widespread, that people would be interested in that. Thank you for hearing me.
What I say about applause, folks, we don't want to be here all night. Okay, is a person in the back here. Please come forward. We won't start the clock till you get up here.
I don't know all the rules. I know this is about zoning. You're not supposed to discuss
Well,
traffic.
first thing,
I'm sorry.
give us your name and
Susan Klaus, I live at 3535 High Point Court.
thank you.
I think it's a zoning meeting discussing agriculture, I get that. But I think some other considerations need to be made. I completely agree the Turners have a right to sell their farm, second generation has inherited it, et cetera. Nice people, the Turner family. Anyway, I think some things need to be taken into consideration just in the zoning, which is traffic. Bad blind spot, curve on Darst. There's an even worse one on Swigert. I live at the end of the cul-de-sac on High Point Court, get woken up by all the accidents. That blind curve, the flashing lights outside are master bad. I think there needs to be some accident reports looked at, and the fatalities and the bad accidents going around that curve. Where that development is, that access is going to be right by that curve. That's the main access out of that development, is right there. That's a bad thing, having more traffic right at that curve. I don't know what the fatality rate is. I know it's bad. The humans just built their house there. Their driveway's also right there coming out of there. They have a lot of cars coming in and out of that property too. It's gonna be another, how many houses now using that main access? That's gonna be the main access, not Darst, out of there. Since the Sugar Creek property across from that church, we can't even get on our little street in and out, especially when the buses are going by. We can't even get in and out, like, we're one street off of Swigert. It took me 10 minutes with the buses the other day to get into my street, which has only got 11 houses on it. Our impact has already been significant because of that other development way down on Swigert. It's ridiculous. It already is ridiculous because of that other housing development. There's got to be a traffic study done before this can even be considered for rezoning and having that many more houses. The impact on the schools need to be looked at. I think the traffic and the accidents, the increase in that needs to be looked at. I don't even know how the zoning can be considered before this is done. It's putting blinders on. There's more impact than just this. I don't know how it can be considered without this being done first, all these things. It's ridiculous. How much more are real estate taxes gonna have to go up when these many more kids are in our schools? I don't know how any of this can be considered before the decision's made to rezone. It's not just about the rezoning. There's so many more things that come into play here. And we can't just keep putting blinders on. How many cities have built their schools up? Springboro, Bellbrook, and they grow out of their schools and they grow out of our schools. And we don't even have an income tax coming in like to offset some of this.
You're out of time.
It's all real estate, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. You're here, aren't you?
Hi, I'm Kim Human at 3584 Swigert. I am here because, for one, the safety, the health and welfare of this whole new plat being built there. For one, we live right on that corner that they're talking about, and I can tell you at least once a month, somebody goes straight through that corner right into the field. And they're constantly putting that back up again. So the only way that they can even fix that is to take away a lot of people's property to redo those streets, or you're going to have all kinds of accidents happening right there. And as they were talking about the blind spot, when we first moved in there, if I go down that curve where the water goes over, I would say at least 50% of the time, somebody is on the other side of that road on the median, and like, you have to be so careful or else you're going to have an accident. I mean, these are like major safety major safety hazards that we're going to have to worry about. And again, I know this is a planning committee, but as far as the school goes, we already have trailers set up at our schools in Fairbrook. This is Fairbrook's area right here. And I know this is not your area or whatever, but we're talking about our kids' safety. You're putting kids in a trailer. We just had a mass shooting at Walmart. And now you think it's okay to keep adding all these kids and put them in trailers, and you're taking their safety in consideration. I don't know how safe you think it is to put all these kids in trailers versus having them in a school that can lock down. I mean, this is like a huge concern. I don't pay all my taxes to have my children go to school in a trailer. And another question I have is, I am all for the Turners. We actually met with the Turners 3 or 4 times before this happened and asked them to please come to us before they do anything, because we knew enough people that were willing to purchase this land and put like 5-acre homes out on there. I mean, I'm all for having it go to residential, but we have to be like reasonable. I mean, and we were willing to even pay a huge chunk of that, keep it green, like donate some to the city to keep that green space for the park. It's just too many things. You can't just put a whole plat in there without taking in consideration literally all the dangerous spots you have there, all the traffic concerns you have there, all the additional kids that are going to be put into these schools where they don't even have room right now. And then all these lots, and I know the gentleman said, it's not 2 houses per acre. These lots right here in the front are literally 8,400 square foot. That is like 0.2 acres. You're like cramming these people in. And I understand that's just their concept, right? I understand that. Okay, so, sorry. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, my name is Samuel Cannon. I live at 3510 Swigert Road, just down the road from Kim. I know it's a planning meeting, zoning meeting, but I just want to reiterate some of the things that folks have already said. At the intersection of Swigert and North Fairfield Road, I've lived there since 2010. Traffic has done nothing but quadruple or even tenfold. And on average, there's anywhere from 4 to 7 major accidents. Just recently, around the curve, around where Kim lives, there was a head-on collision. So now, there is a safety factor that you have to consider as part of the rezoning. Whether it's a traffic safety study or whatever you want to call it, you have got to do that, because since the last 3 years, we've had 10 kids under the age of 14 move into the neighborhood. They play on that street. So every other weekend or every other day, there's people speeding, there's people doing donuts in the intersection, they're popping wheelies on their motorcycles, and every attempt that we've complained to the city, the risk mitigation measures are ineffective. You also have to look at the increased strain on the resources, not just the schools, because I looked at the Beavercreek School master plan, $208 million, and then they're only going to free up 900 spaces. Fairbrook, Beavercreek, now you're going to add not only this subdivision, but other subdivisions. You've already, increased the demand tenfold, right? So you have to factor those things in, or otherwise, we're just going to be behind the infrastructure scale. So I urge you, please take those things into consideration, because if you don't, we're just going to see the problem continue to mount and mount and mount, and you're never going to catch up. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Ken Shelton. I live at 428 Darst Road. I'm the one on that sharp 90-degree bend at everybody. I got some memories here that probably nobody else remembers. I remember when Mr. Turner used to fly his airplane in and out of that property. I bought my property in 1986. My kids played in Darst Road. There was hardly any cars in and out of there. I can't stop progress. But my problem is, why do we have to build so many houses when there's all of Walnut Grove, acres and acres? Why can't we keep the same size lots? Is it about Fisher making money, or is it about our Beavercreek owners trying to survive paying property taxes? Darst Road, I don't know how many of you go down, is one of the worst roads, and it has gotten worse since they did the water main. So if this happens, is there going to be a roundabout at Swigert and Stutzman? If there is the developer going to take care of this, or is this going to be at our expense? Are you going to have to widen Darst Road and all the way from my house all the way down past Sunbeam? Who's going to do that? Is that going to be at our expenses, or will that be Fisher Homes? And so, thank you.
Thank you. Step right on up.
My name is Ron Henderson. I live at 3815 Maple Grove Lane. I'm not going to rehash many of the things that the previous speakers have said, but I do have an idea that if, rezoning is inevitable because, the Turners have the right to make a profit, sell their property. But I think that a compromise, if and when the rezoning goes through, is to build different, larger homes, fewer lots, which would minimize the burden on the resources. What does it take to get a traffic study? Who pays for that? We've seen the conceptual plan. I know that's not final, but just the sheer number of units going in there, regardless of how it's laid out, will still increase the amount of traffic coming in and out of that development. Now, as looking at the conceptual plan, Maple Grove is going to be like Darst. People are not going to weave out to Swigert to get to Darst, to go past Maple Grove to get to Indian Ripple Road. They're going to go straight down Maple Grove, and that street is not geared for that kind of traffic. I don't know what the solution is. Are they going to widen that street? We hope not, but that's what's going to happen. Is all these other ancillary openings are going to be more heavily used than the main road on Darst, particularly because of the strange curves and accidents that happen on those streets. Another question I have is, I know that requirements are to notify people within 500 feet of the development. Most of the people here do a grassroots movement, handouts and going door to door. Is there a way that we can be kept abreast of the meetings, the progress, and what's going on so that we can appropriately respond? Because I know we've had a lot of questions or issues today that didn't deal with zoning, but at the right time, we would like to get the people in place to discuss what needs to be discussed. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Step right on up.
Hi there, I'm Rob Reuter, 3852 South Ashleaf Lane, or Ashleaf Court. I think most of what what I was concerned about has been voiced in some fashion, but I do have one question, is will this be zoned as is it in the township, or is it part of the city of Beavercreek? And if it's in the township, we'd certainly want it to be part of the city, so the same rules apply to obviously the whole plat, and not just have half in the township and have half in the city. And that's it.
I'm going to answer that question real quick. If it was in the township, we wouldn't be hearing it.
All right, very good, very good.
We're the city of Beavercreek. It would be the township's planning commission that would hear that. Next.
Hello, my name is Michaela Leonard, and I live at 91 Earlsgate Road in Beavercreek.
City of.
Oh, city of Beavercreek, of course, of course. So, I am recommending disapproving PUD 23.5. And the reason is this. The proposed rezoning of the 46-acre parcel represents unmitigated traffic risks. We've already discussed that. And if any of you have ever driven down to Costco on Swigert Road, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The subdivision proposed entrance off of Swigert and the proximity to that 90-degree turn that Mrs. Human was talking about introduce unacceptable traffic risks. And until that is taken care of, it probably needs to be a 3-lane through there. We probably shouldn't be considering zoning for this subdivision. Swigert Road lane in each way, it doesn't contain any turning lanes for safe entrance and exit of the subdivision. All other new subdivisions of this size have turn lanes providing a safe entrance and exit. The proximity of this entrance to that 90-degree turn will result in increased accidents, as vehicles traveling south will be concentrating on negotiating the turn, not watching for vehicles in front of them, swinging out, whatever. Further, the connection to Southway Drive, okay, that's another issue, will result in drivers utilizing Hawthorne Glen Trail and Larchmere. We've already talked about Maple Grove becoming a thoroughfare. This is another one. Neither of these roads are designed for the increased traffic, and Larchmere Drive has already had a sign installed by the city stating "through traffic prohibited." By creating this new entrance, the city is consciously increasing through traffic in these existing neighborhoods and negatively impacting the residents along those areas, and it's a threat to pedestrians. Neither of these connecting roads to Indian Ripple have sidewalks, and it will subject pedestrians and children to increased traffic risks. And I know that this is not the time to talk about schools, but I'm a parent. My kids went to Fairbrook, and it is a problem. So you do need to have that somewhere. I'm planting the seed, put it in your head. You know, think about that when you are making your decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gee, we got a line here. Step right on up.
Hello, name's Justin Combs. Address is 3707 McElrath, which is nowhere near any of this. But I'm here based on quite a few things. I actually been doing a lot of work at the Humans Residence over the last 18 months. I personally almost lost my truck. I've almost lost trailers due to the crazy drivers that already come around that corner without paying attention. Everybody else has already touched base there, so let's get back to the zoning of it. I do think rezoning it is a good idea. Why not make it look like when you're going down Trayvine, those, $1 million homes on 10-acre lots? Lovely, right? It might also bring up the value to the surrounding neighborhood, that you're connecting to that have all these complaints. You still get the zoning, but you also keep the value up without overloading the schools. I have 2 kids myself who will also be going to Beavercreek schools throughout their life. I do know that the schools are already overpacked. And I moved to Beavercreek for one thing. It wasn't like all the other cities surrounding it. Overpacked, swamped, overloaded, that's why I moved to Beavercreek. That's all I got to say. Hopefully everything pans out. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening. John Tate, 37610 Westwind. Melissa, thank you for your help. And you can go ahead and pull what I submitted written. I'm just going to cover it real quick because most of it already covered. And this is kind of a question to the gentleman over here. I'm trying to understand when they're coming up with the density numbers, whether the retention lake is counted into that. So it's just density, the number of units in the overall project. But I'm reading the code and it says that lakes or other water areas, any required parking lot, landscape, strip, whatever, shall be excluded when determining the total amount of green area provided. Now, does that? That's for green space required. So you're saying that doesn't play into the overall, that's not how density is. So that's, but you base the area on your green space, right? These RPUDs are supposed to, they compensate for the smaller yards by having the green space. Are you counting that as green space, that retention pond? That's a question.
The way the density is calculated is the total number of units on the total acreage.
And retention ponds
So
don't.
even though there's 8 acres of green space.
Well, that's not green space, that's the thing.
Pond, right, but that means there's 38 acres really, and then all the driveways, all the roads.
Right.
If you would,
I'm trying to understand.
We'll get an answer for you once
Okay.
the public hearing is over.
Okay.
And we'll address that question that you have and get it all figured out. So if you would just go ahead and.
Okay, so to clarify, the question is.
We know what you're talking about.
Okay, I want to understand whether that ratio is a true
Correct.
ratio.
Correct. We'll have an answer for you.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terry Morgan, 249 Catalpa Court. my property faces Maple Grove Lane. I've already sent written comments in, but what we just talked about, we're talking about not green space, we're talking about mosquito breeding ground is what we're talking about. And the reason I got up here was to say this. Your all's website doesn't have these maps. I would request, since we're all very involved with this, I would request that you update the website immediately and you version control each of these updates so that we can see the latest, what's going on. As far as I'm concerned, the Turners could sell their property, but I don't want them connected to my neighborhood at all. Everything that's out here can go somewhere else. Let's keep them out of Maple Grove, keep them out of my neighborhood.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Howard. I live at 3766 Mesquite Drive. I am one of the neighborhoods that would be connecting the street, one of the thoroughfares they're connecting. One of the things that was talked about tonight was storm drain runoff. What was it, 154 storm drain, the environmental impact? So in my backyard alone, there is a storm drain in the back corner. I've lived there 8 years. No one has ever come and serviced it. No one's ever cleaned it out. I have lots of flooding every season between my house and the neighbors. The Guthrie's home behind me is a river that runs through between the natural tree line. So all of the neighbors, when we were sitting down talking to the people here, were discussing how their water runoff from their neighborhoods goes into the current existing green spaces, the trees that connect. And those trees suck up all that water. Well, this farm currently sucks up all of the neighborhood runoff right now. They have a natural spring and natural creek in that area, and if you see in the curve, there's a big storm drain that goes to a small stream that feeds into a larger one that goes into the Little Miami River. So if you're going to put in a plot there, are you going to get rid of the concrete stream, or are we going to have a larger environmental impact or more runoff that will go into those streams into the Little Miami River? How is that going to be impact? When was the last time storm drains were addressed in the different areas and a survey was done in that area? So that is my question and my thoughts on environmental impact.
Thank you.
I need 3 minutes.
Take his, Mr. Buck. Give him 3 minutes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I need to borrow 3 minutes. My name's Ken Shelton.
I should let you be up here again, but go ahead.
I do have one question sitting back here. I haven't had a chance to really look at these drawings. And one of the things I keep...
Please understand, these drawings are not...
Okay. Well, then let's state it this way. If
Pay
we're
no
gonna-
attention to the drawing on the board.
Okay, so if we're going to state this way, if you can put X amount of houses per acre, how wide are the roads going to be for, if you're going to have this many houses, where is my son going to park at? No space in the driveway. Where's all my friends? When you have that many houses, are you going to have off-street parking? And if you don't, what happens if everybody's parking on both sides of the road? Can we get a fire truck down through there? As I said before, I mean, I don't have a problem being developed, but the amount of houses per acre is not. I went through this all with Bellbrook, and they told me no traffic problems or nothing. It's the worst nightmare you've ever seen. Thank you.
I should remind you, we're not Bellbrook.
Yeah, thank God.
Who else would like to speak? Please step right on up.
My name is Rebecca Griffith, and I live at 3705 Swigert Road in Beavercreek Township. So I live directly across the street from the planned development. And I have a few concerns. Some of those are the traffic, obviously. I've lived at this property since 2017, and we have accidents on Swigert Road all the time. It doesn't matter if it's dry, raining, whatever. People are speeding up and down the road. The sharp curve that this lady was speaking about just a few minutes ago, is extremely dangerous. Matter of fact, my daughter's done exactly what somebody said, where they just drove straight through. Deer are always crossing over through there. It's just a hazard. So to suggest putting an entrance off of Swigert Road near that sharp curve is going to make issues worse. I don't know of anywhere on Swigert Road where it would be a good idea to put an entrance into this subdivision. And I hate to say that, because the people who live in the bordering areas then would result in more traffic going back to there. So that is a big concern. The other one is with the water runoff, the wastewater runoff. I am aware that the wastewater plant on Factory Road had a system failure a few years back, where it failed and wastewater leached into our well fields, and nothing, as far as I know, has been done about that. I also have a creek on my property that is constantly getting backed up under the culverts with debris that's not being properly disposed of or whatever. It's causing flooding. My neighbor has the same issue with the creek directly across the street from me, and he's concerned about that as well. Finally, I was reading a lot about your codes and your ordinances with planning and development and zoning, and one of those was having the developer to actually set up buffers between the housing development and the road to maintain the beauty of the area that is existing there now. So these are some of my concerns, and I hope that you've heard them and that you will address these issues accordingly and fairly to the community.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Don't ask Stephanie about,
Who would be next?
don't ask Stephanie about traffic.
Hello, my name's Sean Doherty. I live at 3810 Mesquite Drive. I just wanted to clarify something. I might have missed this at the beginning, but if this gets approved, who would be approving it? Would it be the city council?
From us, it would go, we recommend to council, and then council will have another, tell me if I'm wrong, council will have another public hearing, and then council, it becomes an ordinance. But we are advisory to council.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. I just wanted to.
So there will be another public hearing when this comes before council.
Okay, so this wouldn't be necessarily approved tonight.
It'll be approved by planning commission.
Planning commission,
And
but
then
then
sent to council.
Then the city council would have to again approve
Correct.
it again.
It becomes an ordinance with city council.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was easy.
Who to vote for the next time.
Good evening and happy holidays. My name is Gay Henderson, and I reside at 3815 Maple Grove Lane, and I'm stretching, so can I reposition this? Thank you. I would like to say that this doesn't necessarily have to be a win-lose situation. I think that the Turners have every right to make a financial decision in their best interest, in that they own the property. And I think that the Fisher Corporation have a right as a corporate entity to make a profitable decision on behalf of the company. I think a resolution has been offered several times to build larger homes that could be profitable for both. And I ask that you consider that. I think the advantage to the community is that it will appreciate the property value. It will put less stress and strain on an already stressed resource base in our schools and our streets and our infrastructure and our services. And in that you make the advisory recommendation, I would ask you as an intelligent entity to strongly consider that as a viable option. And also as people that if you are in our situation, in our environment, with children of your own, with family of your own, with your own resources in your own homes, what personal decisions would you make for your best interests? And we're just asking you to take that under consideration for us because we're at your mercy. And I hope you have a very happy holiday and God bless you all.
Thank you. Boy, nothing like keeping it friendly. I appreciate that. Okay, who's next? Don't be shy. We don't bite. Not very hard anyway. You got to come up to the microphone. Can't yell from the back. Okay.
I like to yell, but that's
Make
the thing.
this very, very quick.
It is very
this
quick.
This is your second helping.
Yes, it is. It's actually just a question. I thought what the lady that just came up here, she made some very valid points. I would believe that most people in this room are supportive of the Turner family. They want them to have fair market value for their property, et cetera, et cetera. The big theme that I'm hearing here is this, that people are concerned about density. They are also concerned about our schools and infrastructure. If this goes forward, if you approve it as a board, okay, do you put stipulations on it for the city council? Do you say, hey, we think it's great to change this to this, but this is what we recommend? Is that how the process goes?
I want to answer that right quickly just so you'll understand. All we're doing tonight is zoning.
Correct.
Pay
But
no attention to that. The zoning, what we're looking at is our PUD zoning.
Correct.
Which means it's residential, but it does not stick specifically to R1A, R1B, or any residential. It gives us the opportunity, it gives us wiggle room. It gives us wiggle room on that. And as a result, nothing else would happen tonight except zoning. There will be then if presuming we approve and city council approves, then there will be a specific site plan from the developer. And that will come before us with a public hearing, and presuming, well, whether it's approved or not by us, then it would go forward to city council for a public hearing. So after tonight, there are 3 more steps. So all we're doing tonight is zoning, Z-O-N-I-N-G, zoning.
So Mr. Sullivan, I think, just to clarify, I think she's asking prospectively, and I know you caught that, but I just want to say, usually how this happens is if this is approved, rezoned, then the developer will have to come back with a specific site plan where those drawings will matter, and they will depict what they plan to do. You're asking essentially if we can put conditions on a specific site plan, which we can, but we cannot mandate them to do more than what the zoning code says. So the zoning code in this instance says that it would have to be 3 units per acre, right? 3 dwelling units per acre. And
that would be max.
Max. And they're proposing 2.1. So we couldn't say.
We'll get into this when we discuss this amongst ourselves. We got lots of notes up here, believe me. Okay, anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Step right on up.
Deborah Morgan, 249 Catalpa Court. I really only have a plea that y'all return to consideration. Fundamentally, this is about quality of life. And fundamentally, y'all are at the beginning stage of it. And so I would really encourage y'all to consider everything that's been said that has to do with our children, our grandchildren, our being able to take walks on the sidewalk. All the things that we bought these homes for throughout the years. We've been there 15 years, and we love it. We love the whole environment. It's quiet. It's peaceful. People see each other and like each other, and the children are safe to play in the court. Even the small Walnut Grove Park is not going to be the safe place that it was to the parents as it is right now. Not because I'm anticipating crime, but I'm anticipating crime. Just please remember that Beavercreek has always been a desired community. And since we've been here with the Air Force and retired here, it's always been desirable. The more we pile and congest, it's not going to be that anymore. And my heart's desire is that, excuse me, all of our leadership, starting with the Zoning Commission, that would be their first desire, their first ambition. And it's not to build Beavercreek into a multi-million-dollar, because we have so many more citizens that pay more taxes, and it just keep it someplace that people are going to really desire to live here. Like I said, people work to be able to come here and get a lovely home and live a quiet life. So thank you.
Thank you. You got, no, come right on ahead. I was telling the young lady in the back that you beat her to it.
Awesome. Gwen Fox Stump, 3709 West Wind Drive. I'm at the dead end of Southway that is directly onto the map. I have kind of a specific question. So on the auditor's website, it says that the Turners still own this farm and that it's not owned by Fisher. So why is it that the Turners are not the ones who are responsible for asking for this zoning change before? I assume the sale is contingent on the zoning change, right? So why is someone who doesn't own this property allowed to ask for a zoning change?
That's the way it normally is.
So somebody
it's
could just
perfectly
ask
legal.
to change the zoning of my house? My land?
No, but it's perfectly legal if a developer is looking at a piece of property, they're going to want to know if the city is going to do anything with it. So that is, tell me if I'm wrong, Randy.
No, you are correct. There's an authorization by the Turners that Fisher Homes act as an agent on their behalf. We've got that signed owner authorization.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's a young lady waiting over here in the wings who wants to speak. Step right on up.
I want to give my 3 minutes to Kim Human.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I'm not speaking. I'm giving my minutes to you. Go.
No,
You live there. You're the one who has the house, the big huge house.
I just have a question, actually. Can you tell me the process that we could possibly still do is there any way that the city would work with people that are in the community and possibly purchasing that land at this point? If I know like 3 or 4 families, no.
You would need to speak to council about that. We don't have any power on that, but that's something you need to speak to the city about.
Okay.
That
so
would be
to the council?
Yeah.
Okay. So like to
and the Turners for that matter.
Right. And I'm just saying if if the city would be willing to purchase a certain amount and then the other people would buy the rest of it, that would be something we'd have to take up with the city.
Correct.
Okay.
Ain't our purview. Okay. All right. I didn't think I'd be running out of people. Step right on up.
My name is Ashley Dahl, and I live at 3721 Swigert Road. On that map, we're across the street from it. I understand we shouldn't be talking about other things. However, there is a major issue with the school district and how small our buildings are. There are 4 trailers in the back of Fairbrook. Paul Otten picked up my 8th grader one day. There's something wrong when the superintendent is picking up our children. We bought this house 10 years ago, and we've lived there, and we bought it based on the fact that we have an acre of land, and our neighbor has an acre of land, and Becky on the other side of Clint has an acre of land, and that we live across the street from a farm, from green space, not a neighborhood. We chose where we did based on our great school district and the rating that we have. We chose to buy that property based on having space and not being crammed on top of each other. I don't want to see a neighborhood across the street. especially a neighborhood as dense as whatever the density is, because they're not taking into account the green space that's not included. I don't know. I think that there needs to be a lot of consideration on rezoning something based on the plan that has been sent up to you, because that's obviously what they want to do, regardless of if it, the zoning or whatever. I just don't think that that is fair to ask us as a community to not talk about our schools, to not talk about traffic, I can't check my mail without playing Frogger on a daily basis based on that curve and the hump that's there and making sure that there's nobody coming. We also got a thing in the mail saying that Beavercreek wasn't going to take care of the ditch anymore. So on top of the fact that I have traffic and a curve, nobody's mowing the sides of the road. So I have to stand in poison ivy to check my mail after I've played Frogger. If you have a development there, I will literally not be able to check my mail. I don't let my 13-year-old check my mail because it's not safe. I just think that there needs to be a lot of thought process behind this, not just how much are we going to get from taxes, how much are we going to get from all of the other things. There's many other things we could do with it besides building a crammed trailer park-like neighborhood.
Thank you. Are we actually running out of people? Anybody out in the hall who hasn't had a chance to speak who wants to? Going once. Going twice. Okay. We're checking the hall. Okay. Going once. Going twice. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to start to my right with, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is just so exciting, I forgot about that. Written input, please.
Yes, I did want to put on record that we did receive 41 letters. The commissioners did receive copies of all of those.
Having looked through them, y'all pretty well covered what was in the letters, but we always appreciate, even if it's evening reading, we always appreciate your input. Okay, now, with the public hearing closed, I'm going to start on my right. Put you on the spot.
All right, questions, Randy? All right, so I'll start with something that wasn't actually talked about. So the 25-foot grading line that's there, is that like a no cut zone at all, or is that like can they cut down stuff in that area? Like what can they do in that?
If and when the site gets graded,
Yep.
what we tend to see is developer will come in and do the whole site.
Okay.
I mean, they'll get it ready for roads and stormwater and sanitary and water and lines and everything. And we want to see during that process, that first 25 feet, that abut the existing residential neighborhoods not be touched. But once it would turn over to the property owner, the way the wording is on it now is that then the property owner can do what they want on those trees and that shrubbery.
Okay. I know a lot was talked about the sharp curve and everything. I know when reading through the packet, in the land use plan, it talks about the realignment of the abrupt bend should be in conjunction with the development of the land. Mm-hmm. So, and I believe also in the packet it talks that would also be discussed at the site planning stage.
Correct.
Okay. And so the engineer would look over that, right?
That's correct.
And give his recommendations on how to, mitigate any traffic concerns, anything
Correct.
like that. Okay. I know sometimes you give us like trip counts for a proposed development. Do we have any of that for this?
I do. Those are done as part of the traffic study. I mean, there's a general number, but I mean, again, those are details that we would typically provide at the specific site plan stage.
Okay. I know drainage was talked about a lot. I know, again, that would be at the site plan stage.
Correct.
But just for everyone's sake, could you just talk about how, the runoff, it can't be worse, right? And that they have to put in retention ponds and contain all the water on the site.
Correct. Yeah, when we get to that, if we get to that second phase and they go through the design the grading plan and the stormwater detention plan, they have to do a calculation on how much the current site produces and how much, as developed, it'll produce, and any of that excess has to be detained for a certain amount of time in a stormwater detention pond. One of the nice things about PUDs rather than a straight R1A is we can require them to make that a wet pond and put fountains in it to prevent, stagnant water or any of the aeration devices to prevent the moss growing over, or prevent them from just putting a deep drainage ditch down there and just have it, the silt settle in and it be cattails and muck at the bottom. So with the PUD process, we can make that a wet pond, but they'll have to detain the water in that wet pond for a certain amount of time, and it would only be able to leave that pond at a rate that's not increased, that does not increase the flow as it is right now. What we see typically also is, because it's so expensive, if they didn't engineer it right at the beginning to retrofit a pond to meet that criteria, like if they built it and then we find that it's not meeting the criteria, it costs so much more to do that they always, every development I've done in the last 17 years with the city, every development I've been part of over the last 17 with the city, they over-engineer the pond, and sometimes it makes the existing situation better, sometimes it doesn't, but they tend to be very cautious because it's really inexpensive to just make it a little bit bigger during construction.
Okay. But again, that would be if we get to a site plan.
But again, that's not part of this evening.
Let's see. So do we know the density of the PUD to the west? Do you happen to know that?
I looked at it. I think I want to say, I can't say for certain, but I mean, I think it's probably, it's been a couple months since I looked at it, but I want to say that it was like 1.4, 1.5, something like that. But
yeah,
again,
so it's a little
that's
lower,
not for
but
the newspapers.
Not drastic difference.
Right.
Okay. Can you talk about the calculation? Because I know there was a lot of questions about that, of how you're calculating the dwelling units per acre, how that works.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You just look at the overall acreage. In this case, it's 46.86, and you look at the number of units, which is 96. And you do that number. It's just a division problem. So that division problem runs out to 2.05 dwelling units an acre. If this were in an impact fee district and there was like 3 acres of roadways, then you wouldn't calculate that land in. But this is not an impact fee district, so all we do is look at 46.8 acres and 96 homes and do the division.
Okay. All right.
Folks, that's the way our zoning code is, and we don't change the zoning code at this point. Excuse me, this public hearing part is over.
Randy, I know there was also concerns about like parking on the street or fire access, and again, that would be covered if we got to a site plan, right? And
yeah, I mean, they'll have to do standard, any road that's built in there will have to be built to public standards. There'll be public roads, so they have to be built wide enough to the existing. There's also a requirement in single-family neighborhoods that 2 off-street, every home has to provide at least 2 off-street parking spaces. And 99.999% of the cities houses in the city, that's their driveway. It's 2 off-street parking spaces.
Okay. Let's see. And then I know we just covered this a little bit, or some people were asking about this, but notifications on progress. I know you can go on to the city's website and sign up, and the city will email you when agendas are published.
Yes, there's you can sign up for that as a list for email.
And it also keeps a version of the agendas if there's a new one out there. You can see previous agendas.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I was hesitant to want to change. I don't want to look like we're doing a bait and switch. That's why I was hesitant not to bring up and I only got it. the new plan that I presented this evening, I got last, I'm going to say Thursday. And I don't like the appearance of bait and switch when we showed this whole thing this whole month. And then, so I wanted to explain it at the meeting rather than just throw in new plans, because that makes it more confusing if you just throw in another plan without any explanation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's all for now. I'll let fellow commissioners take over.
Good thing you stay there.
Yeah. I need my steps though. So.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask the same question about density. I think that's something going forward when we need to have that information available to make sure we are hitting compatible numbers. I think that's something that we should make available when we're doing these meetings, so we can make a kind of a little bit more educated decision on those. So I appreciate you getting that to us. When we get to the, if and when we get to the SSP stage, will the new curve plan be in place for the street, and what the actual city's plan is to remedy that situation from an engineering standpoint? Or will that be one of those, we're going to work on it, or we're working on it kind of deal? Or how's that going to look from the city's perspective?
I mean, we've had preliminary discussions with them already on the concern that we have with that curve. And so when a traffic study is performed and done, we have to look at the results of that and see what their recommendations are. But I would anticipate, at bare minimum, turn-in lanes into the new project. A left-hand turn-in and a right-hand turn-in. And there's certainly been discussion on that sharp curve up to the northeast corner of the property, and that was one of the reasons the plan changed, because the original plan had the access point right there, and we told them that was just way too close, and so they brought it down towards the middle.
Okay.
But again, these are just concept plans. I'm trying to separate specific site plan and zoning, but with this much detail at the zoning phase, it's
sure, but it was put in
difficult.
fact as part of it. So I mean, everybody's going to have questions.
That's the
double-edged
that's
sword.
the
They want to know what's
difficulty.
coming in to rezone, but then they also, when you see
If
what's
you don't
coming
provide
in,
enough,
right?
then it looks like you're trying to hide something.
100%. Are all the current connectors stub streets today?
They are stub streets.
So every
None
single
of
one
them are
of them
cul-de-sacs.
does not have any curbing that indicates a dead end, or.
I mean, I didn't physically go out and look, but they're all designed as stub
But they were
streets.
they were
If they
all
were
designed as stubs,
not, then they would
even
have
if they're
cul-de-sacs.
20, 30 years old, those kind of
Right.
things. Okay. So we talked about the curve on the street there. We talked about traffic study. You just talked about that as that was going to be part of that. Can that be worked in an overall traffic study for the overall traffic for the area, again, before an SSP would or would not come before us? If that's something
I'd have to defer the scope of the study onto our engineering department.
Okay. Would you be able to answer that question?
Good evening. As far as the traffic study goes, I can tell you that the developers already hired their own traffic consultant, and we're going to hire a third-party consultant to review what they submit to us. Right now, we're at the phase where we're trying to define the scope of that study. So that's still all being hashed out. So once that's finalized, the next step in this is for us to agree on the scope and what's going to be looked at.
Okay.
And then they actually perform the study, then we review it and go back and forth from there.
Okay, but the expectation would be if and when we went to an SSP, that there would be a traffic study available at that point.
That's correct. There will be a traffic study when you guys see the site plan. We'll have some real numbers to fall back on to talk about.
Okay, and would you be able to address, I know no engineering from your side, but like the cleaning of the culverts and the areas we're talking about, grass mowing, I believe those are township areas, but I know you're not an expert in that.
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of a combo question.
Yeah,
so.
I know some of the people that spoke tonight, there's a combination. Some are, I think, are Beavercreek Township residents, some are city residents. But yeah, if anybody has a problem with like a storm drain in their backyard or a culvert, please give us a call. Our maintenance department, they do great work. We're more than happy to go out and check out a concern, a drainage concern, problems with pipes or catch bases. We're happy to do that. So please call the Public Service Department or the City Engineering Office, and we'll be sure and get somebody out there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And Randy, I just had a couple, or Mr. Burkett, I had just a couple other questions. So I know there was Actually, it was part of this last, second to last bullet point was the 5-foot minimum side yard. No principal structure shall be closer than 15. So you've got an existing off to the west. The way I'm reading that is that neighbors could be within 15 feet from an existing neighborhood. Is there any reason that we couldn't bring that to potentially a little bit more reasonable width between new and existing?
So you're
So
what we're saying is if there's an
specifically, because you're
existing,
gonna have a road run here, and you're gonna have side yards here, right here.
right.
So you're gonna end up with neighboring side yards from old and new communities with what I'm reading is only a 15-foot division.
And what we're also saying is on the lots that share a side yard with an existing R1A or R1B, that's the next bullet point, those new lots have to be at least 10 feet.
So it will be at least a 20-foot on each side, or 20
Well,
foot total.
in an R1A, the side yard setback is 25 feet combined. So, but at least one has to be 15. That was set up back in,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
before the
Yeah,
city
yes.
was a city.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one
Okay.
could be 10 and one could be 15. They both could be 12 and a half. So really, the separation between houses depends on the existing side yard setback of the existing house. Whatever that is, plus 10 feet would be the minimum.
Okay.
So if they put their house at 10 feet on that side and 15 on the other, then it could be 20 feet apart.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that makes perfect sense to me. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had. I appreciate you.
Yep.
And then just had just a couple, just quick things here while we're up here. We're completely non-associated with the schools. I know you guys, we hear you, trust me, we all have a lot of the same things and concerns. We unfortunately are legally completely unbound and are not legally allowed to even consider. I know that that's awful for everybody here, ourselves included, but we cannot legally look at the impact on our schools. It's just not anything we're allowed to take in. So as much as our hearts want to address that, it's not anything we can legally do on our end, and we're completely divorced. Legally, we're just like any legal entity, we're completely divorced. Trust me, I want to say things. I've had 2 different neighborhoods be built in the last 3-4 years. I live in Terra. I feel your guys' pain. Unfortunately, us as a citizen laymen's who are appointed, who are basically volunteers, we are legally bound by a handful of rules that we have to follow very, very specifically because, trust me, there are times that we want to be able to express our concerns and are kind of legally bound by the constraints of what we are doing. I have 2 new neighborhoods that I, don't necessarily love, but that's part of the progress here. And unfortunately, yeah, our hands are very, very tied in this. We definitely feel and understand your anguish, but this is just kind of where we're at. So
I just want to back up. So when you say why, it's because of, in terms of traffic, I would say dozens and dozens of court decisions dating back to at least the 40s that say traffic can't be considered. And for the schools, there's case law that would suggest that's not a valid reason to be a factor in zoning. So those 2 things should not be considered in a zoning decision. Schools, traffic. They shouldn't be a factor.
That's a state law that has been upheld by the court. So talk to your state legislature. Don't beat us up over it.
So I'm not sure the legislature will actually help because it's a constitutional issue.
Well, there's that too.
Is that what the city council do? They can't,
Folks,
the council, they can't consider it either?
Folks, let's cool it. This is out of our purview. I know you're not happy with it, but it's completely out of our purview, and it's not germane to the discussion this evening.
And we do have, and again, we encourage you to come out for the specific site plan where we do have a little bit, if this would be approved, that's where we're going to have the most ability to not necessarily dictate, but to recommend certain things that we can and can't do to be able to make this more palatable for all the parties involved. So this, unfortunately, our hands are completely bound by just moving it from A1 to R1A. That's it. That's all we can consider at this point. So, or PUD, I'm sorry. That's all I have. Thank you.
Done? Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. Like Nick said, we hear you. We understand. Nick and I live in the same neighborhood. Somebody asked us to put ourselves in your place. We were out on the other side of the podium making the same arguments you guys are a year or 2 ago. We get it, right? I've got kids, and I'm concerned about the schools as well. different. It's a different topic. We cannot consider that for the zoning. I will tell you, Nick and I drove down Swigert today. We understand. I understand it's just a driver in Beavercreek. It's not the greatest road. Hopefully, if the development does go in, hopefully there'll be some kind of safety consideration for the road. We did see the big, what was that, a jingle bell decoration at the corner of Swigert. So we did see that today for the first time. But we get it. We can't organize, we just hear things that come to us, or the applications that come to us. We can't organize a grassroots movement like you guys are asking for, but that doesn't stop you. If you guys talk to the Turners or the Fisher Corporation, that's incumbent upon you guys. We as a governmental body cannot do that, but I would encourage you all to. One thing that you may not believe me, but I'll tell you, drainage, for people who are concerned about drainage, I have not seen a development that's gone in that's made drainage worse. And you won't believe it until you see it and until it's next to you, but it's true. Every drainage concern that I've had has been mitigated by new developments going in. And it's because of the over-engineering that Mr. Burkett talked about. So I understand there are a lot of other concerns, but I think a lot of you and your neighbors have agreed that rezoning in and of itself is not bad. I think changing to an RPUD in this case is a good decision. What is done with that afterwards can be debated at next month's meeting when there's a specific, or whenever they come, when there's a specific site plan. As a citizen of Beavercreek, you can't make more green space, and I get that. But we can only talk about and give opinions on what comes before us, and we do take that seriously. So tonight before us we have the rezoning, and that's what we're going to vote on. So thank you.
My turn. Okay, I got some questions for our staff. Mr. Burkett. He knew he wasn't going to get away with not having questions from me. I think we've already discussed the scary curves on Swigert and on Darst, but that is really city engineer, and I'm sure they're looking at it because they don't like accidents any more than we do. And we've already discussed that there will be a traffic study as part of this. Randy, I can't think of another development where there has not been turn lanes into that development, and I can't imagine that there would not be a left turn lane and a right deceleration lane for the access from Swigert.
Yeah, I can't think of one that.
And probably a street light there at that intersection.
40 years ago or something.
Right.
But
no, not in the last 36.
Yeah, we want to. It's unsafe not to have those kind of turn lanes.
Right. Okay. The plat to the west was that R1B PUD. Mm-hmm. Do you have any? And I'm putting you on the spot. Have any idea of a approximate lot size from that?
Well, R1B requires 16,000 as a minimum.
Right. Okay.
I did do an analysis on the average.
Okay. I just wanted to make that point. Another thing that, and this really surprised me when I first heard it, traffic trips in and out, single family versus multifamily. Single family is greater or fewer?
From a traffic standpoint, single family produces the most.
Okay.
On a unit by unit basis. So 100 units of single family would produce more than 100 units of apartments.
Okay. Just wanted to make that point. I'm sorry, folks. I'm reading from some really sketchy notes here, and I got to find them all. The access to the proposed development from Swigert Road, what we saw on this con plan is not by any means cast in stone, and I would certainly go on record to the developer to move it further down Swigert, away from that curve.
Yeah, originally it was way down at the very bottom corner.
I ain't gonna fly, I'll guarantee you.
And that was disconcerting.
Right.
And so we had to
More
move
than
it to where it is
disconcerting
now.
is scary. And folks, for those of you who are concerned about the new plat connecting with yours, I got a case study for you. I live in the Apple Valley East, which is in the triangle formed by US 35, Fairfield Road, and Shakertown. Yes, thank you. And for as long as I've lived there, which is 50 years, we have had one access into and out of our plat, and there are 307 houses in our plat. My record so far is having to wait for 46 cars to go by before I could pull out onto North Fairfield Road. About 2 years ago, the developer came forward with Cedarbrook Farms, which is that new plat that is accessed off of Shakertown Road. And there's one street in our plat that's stubbed out, and that's Newton Drive. Everyone in our plat was all concerned that people from the new plat were going to shortcut through our plat to get to Fairfield Road. And I told them, it ain't going to happen. We're going to be shortcutting through the new plat because we could get out to Fairfield Road at a traffic light, and that's exactly what's happened. And we finally have another way, not only for ourselves, but for emergency equipment to get into the plat, and that is off of Shakertown. And it's actually worked out quite well. So I wouldn't be overly concerned. You're going to be shortcutting through the new plat to get out to Swigert to go south. And I think it's a little more of a concern than you make it out to be. But and one other thing, Randy, we would be requiring sidewalks in this plat, would we not? And how about along the frontage on Swigert?
There will be sidewalks within the neighborhood.
Okay.
In terms of Swigert, along Swigert, that was an early discussion about having that, but there are plans in the future to widen Swigert, and we didn't want to have them put in sidewalks and then us rip them out.
Right. Okay, but that is something that would be coming at a future time.
At a future date.
Okay.
That future date, I don't know, but.
Right. Okay, I have I have two questions for the developer. You've been up here before. You know I won't bite. Just two quick questions, and we won't hold you to the dollar amount, but the approximate price range of the houses that y'all are proposing.
I would defer that question to our land acquisition manager, Jennifer.
You put her on the spot. You need to come on up here to the microphone because this is going out on television, and they won't be able to hear you.
Jennifer Gonzalez. I'm the land acquisition manager for Fisher Homes in Dayton. We estimate that the homes are going to be priced probably starting in the 550s, and they would likely close up to $900,000.
Okay, good.
So
Thank you.
They're expensive.
Now, one more question for you,
Yep.
and that is the larger houses that you showed. There were actually two different
Products,
packages,
yeah.
right? The larger ones. How are those footprints going to look on the lots, the lot sizes that you're talking about on the interior lots?
I'll defer that question to my
Oh
colleague.
boy, you're just pushing them off. He's a delegator, folks. See, I put somebody else on the spot.
Hi, my name is Amanda Webb. I'm a planning and entitlement manager with
Grand Communities. So the outer lots are wider, of course, because they're mimicking the existing neighborhood. We have designed the interior lots around the kind of peach area. We've designed those lots to be able to fit our products with the anticipated setbacks that were noted in the ordinance.
Okay. And it appears that most of your designs are either side or rear opening garages, or did I look at that wrong?
We have a blend of both front entry and side entry garages.
Okay, so there'll be a mix of both.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And just to foot stomp what they said about prices, the Cedarbrook Farms development, the houses there are in the $400,000 to $600,000 range, which is has boosted the values of the houses in our plat. So we weren't unhappy about that at all. Let's make sure I haven't missed anything here. One thing I did want to say to you all, and that is, and our legal eagle here can back me up on this. See, I'm putting him on the spot now, and that is when we have a parcel of undeveloped land, so that we're talking about here, R1A, which is our underlying zoning, and a developer comes in wanting rezoning, nothing more than rezoning, and it meets both our land use plan, and we revise that land use plan every 5 years. So this has been going on as long as I've been on Planning Commission, but it meets our law, our rezoning law, and it also meets what the land use plan says. Can we legally turn that down without consequences?
Not without consequences. You can turn it down, but there'll be consequences. So yes, you are absolutely correct.
And the consequences are?
Your decision would likely be challenged in court eventually, and you would lose, and the city would be out legal fees in defending it, and I think in general also have to pay the legal fees of the party who filed the action. So the decision will be overturned. You'll end up in the same situation where the rezoning will be approved by a court, but instead of it being at no cost, you'll have all the legal fees involved.
And that has happened with the city at least twice since I've been on Planning Commission, and that's exactly what happened in both cases. So I just wanted to make that point, folks. We as a Planning Commission are, like any other legal body, we are bound by the laws and by the body of court decisions as to what we can do legally. So I just wanted to make that point. Okay, second helpings, gentlemen. Okay, then it is motion time.
Mr. Chair, I would motion to approve PUD 23-5, the Turner rezoning.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, second.
Okay, do we have any
It's had 11 conditions, or 10 conditions.
Okay, any changes to the conditions, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Read the roll.
Mr. Loftus?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes. So this goes on to council, and presuming council approves it or whatever happens, then the next step will be a public hearing for the specific site plan. And if you are within 500 feet of the parcel in any direction, you will get a letter. If you are not, I would suggest, as was pointed out, go on the city website, sign up, and you will get more information than you ever wanted about this. You'll be heard by council, and presuming this goes forward, you'll be heard by us again. And thank you all for coming, and thank you for being easygoing on this. It makes it a lot easier for us. And we're going to take a brief break before we go on to the next one.
things back. Let's do it.
All right, we are back, and we are ready for our fourth public hearing, PC 23-8.
This is case number PC 23-8, conditional use on an application filed by University Baptist Church of Beavercreek Incorporated, 223 Haynes Road, Beavercreek, Ohio 45432. The applicant requests conditional use approval to allow for a parking lot expansion located at 2223 Haynes Road. The property is further described as Book 4, page 8, parcel 194 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. I presume there is someone here from the church. Step right on up and tell us what you have in mind.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep my comments short. I know we've all had a long night. Really, we just have a lot of people attending our church. We have a parking lot that's full every Sunday with multiple people. If you drive by, you see the traffic there. We have people presently that have to park across the street at our UBC East property, which is right across Haynes Road, and then walk across that street to come into our church. Then we also have now started having people park at the preschool building across Kemp and having to kind of follow the crosswalk area there to come into our church. And so we're just hoping to be able to expand the on-site parking to improve safety for those in our community. Oh, should have stated my name right from the start. Sorry about that. My name's Jason Wing. You're welcome.
Thank you. Any of your overflow you could send to our church.
Okay,
we got
great.
plenty of parking.
Let's do a joint church service. We'll do it.
Okay, staff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is case PC 23-8, the University Baptist Church conditional use request. They're requesting to expand an existing parking lot. What they are proposing is an additional 93 parking spaces. The project's located in northeast Beavercreek. It's just at the southwest intersection of Kemp Road and Haynes Road. As Planning Commission may remember, it was in early 2022, the owners came in and asked for an expansion of the building and expansion of the parking lot. On this site, you can see that they have the building done, but the aerial photo was taken before the parking lot expansion was done. What they're proposing, and I know this is a mess, and I apologize. And I've got a better one, so I'll just bring that up now. What they're proposing, the dark gray area is what is an existing parking now, and the orange is the existing building. And what they're proposing is to construct the future parking area, which is dark with I guess gray with the red hashes through it, and that's on the west side of the property, along with an access point onto Kemp Road, and then some sidewalk along that parking lot to extend to the existing building so that you have that pedestrian access without having to go all the way down to the drive aisle on the south end of the property. Then they show a future expansion area with the red being future parking lot and future drive aisle, and pink being future sidewalk, and then a lighter pink being future building. One of the conditions in the resolution for your consideration is that they not have to come back for a second hearing on just the parking lot itself, the future parking lot. So I wanted to at least present that to you. As long as they matches what they're showing here, consider that a future parking area already approved with this hearing this evening. They do show the inclusion of additional landscaping throughout the parking field to the south and to the northeast, to the center of the property on the west end of the property. I know that I did have a neighbor call in concerned about he lives immediately to the west of this site and was concerned about the removal of some pine trees and some shrubbery along that western property line. So I kind of did a side-by-side of what's existing there now versus what they're proposing. You could see on the landscape plan on the right, they show a lot of the pine trees being remain. There's 11 or 12 of them that are going to be remain, but there's more than that there now. So some of them will have to come down with this. They propose to include some additional shade tree and a dense row of shrubbery along that western parking lot. That shrubbery does have to be planted at 24 inches at height during planting. I know that the neighbor is requesting additional evergreen trees, and I wouldn't see a problem as long as that they fit. Because if you put pine trees too close together, then it kills them all. So if that's asked for and approved, the condition should read so that they're spaced adequately to maximize and ensure survival. But again, that just kind of shows I did an overlay so that you can see where the landscaping is going to go versus the existing. Based on the applicant's request, staff does recommend approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions following the public hearing.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing, and we don't have quite as many people this time. But if you would like to come forward, speak for, against, or simply have questions, please step right on up. And state your name and address, please.
David Bowser, 3078 Felton Road. And yeah, I think it's great what's happening there. I just give request if we could stagger some evergreens along there, because cars will be looking right into our bedroom and shining lights, and it sits up high. So, and I also question this dense row of shrubs that was talked about on the west side. There's a creek there, and putting shrubs in the creek along the creek is not really going to be helpful. We have a lot of blockage and stuff, so if we could just get dense evergreens, I think that would be the best thing. A reasonable height that would grow pretty quick. Ideally, like a Norfolk or arborvitae, something that's going to be dense and grow fast. But it's great. Glad to see the growth there.
Thank you. I knew I'd have one more.
My name is Drea Oscoli, and I'm at 3077 Kemp Road, so right next door. So I understand this is just the first of a couple of different projects that they're doing. I didn't realize that they were planning on expanding the building so much more in the future. I would just say that I think we're really lucky to have what little green space we have left over there. The only other green space we have is Wardinger, and I understand that this is the church's property and they can kind of do whatever they want to do there, but I would just say that, part of the appeal of moving over here was that next door was a nice green area as opposed to a parking lot, a lot of, cars being parked there and things like that. There's a school zone there as well, and I understand that this is mostly happening on Sundays, but it's just something that, it adds to the traffic and adds to other things there, and I understand from the past meeting that we don't really consider traffic for these things and whatnot, but it is something that I don't feel is going to have a positive impact on our property values over there, because now we're going to have a butt up right against, a parking lot as opposed to a nice green space. So when we turn around to sell this property, it's not going to have potentially as good a value as what it would have, had this not gone in. So again, at this juncture, for what they're considering putting in at this moment, isn't going to have a potential impact on so much my property as their property next, behind me, the gentleman that just spoke. But obviously in the future, it is going to be something that is going to impact my property in the brighter red color that they are proposing for future development. So, I understand that they're going to potentially put some trees there and try to shield our properties a little bit and things like that. I'm wondering if there's, again, I was thinking that they were going to potentially put this closer to their building because it seemed like a long way to walk to have these people going all the way from the back of the lot, all the way across this giant field to get to the church. But I see now that they're planning on putting in an immense portion, that they're going to use of that lot to make future building. I had no idea that was going in until this moment. But I would just ask them to consider, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus want you to pave paradise and put up a parking lot? I mean, just consider that when you're thinking about putting all these buildings and all of this parking area and things like that. You're cutting out so much beautiful natural area to just continue this expansion, continue this expansion, continue this expansion. So, I mean, it doesn't only affect me and my neighbor. I mean, it really affects everybody who's driving past there. It's just going to be more building to look at and more parking lot to look at, as opposed to beautiful green space that they have now. I would just ask that they, consider putting on it something else and expanding maybe the services that they offer. Instead of having 1 or 2 services on a Sunday, maybe expanded to a couple more services that would allow for people to come at different times of the day, to cut down on the parking that they need to have utilized there. And maybe we could have a smaller parking lot area, keep more green space and things like that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Others? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and I'll start with my vice chairman this time.
Mr. Self, I have
sorry.
one written input.
Man, I just keep blowing that. I'm sorry.
We did receive one email that came in, and the commissioners did receive a copy of it too.
Thank you. Okay, now it's your turn.
I don't know that I really have any questions on this one, other than, honestly, I would look at it as advantageous to the homeowners. You have a stub at the end of your neighborhood, and you're never going to have to connect it to another neighborhood, which we just saw what just happened there. So I think the outcome, being that land is the owners to do what's they see fit to do and is zoned correctly. So we're really not here to be able to do anything other than that, but to look at these 2 parking lots, which seem completely compatible with the space. So I don't have any questions.
I have one question for the applicant and one for staff. So, applicant? Yeah. Sorry.
You're on television.
So, the lady who just spoke or addressed us talked about the number of services. How many do you have on a Sunday?
How many people or how many services?
How many services?
We have 2 right now.
2 right now. Good. Any plans to up that?
We potentially, and we actually used to run 6 total services on a Sunday before, and it's all got its complications. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then one question for staff. So it looks like there's already a dirt road coming from Kemp down to where the parking lot will be, but there's going to be an actual ingress egress point from Kemp. Okay, it doesn't connect to Kemp.
No,
So
that's part of the drainage.
Okay.
It's kind of kind of hard to explain, but it's part of the drainage system that's there now. It gets the water in that new northeast parking lot circuitously down to the pond that's in the southwest corner.
Okay. So when they put in the new egress point on Kemp, is there going to be a traffic control there? Like a light or something?
A light, no. I mean, you would have to get a warrant to be able to put a light in, and I don't think the traffic that this would generate would warrant a traffic light, especially being within 300 or 400 feet of the existing light at Kemp.
Okay.
There'll have to be some decel lane or a turn-in lane. I think the road has already got the width that it needs to get that turn-in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just 2 quick questions, Randy.
Get my steps in.
What you just said brought up one question. So you said that was part of like the drainage. So when they put in the new parking lot and then the new parking lot, I guess, what will they do with that swale or whatever you want to call that?
It'll turn into pipes. I mean,
Okay,
it'll go
it will.
underground.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. And then just another comment question. Is our requirements for parking too low? Like, because in this case, we looked at that, right, when we did the addition, and it met all those, like the conditions in our zoning code, right, for parking.
Yeah, I mean, it did meet it. I don't think it's too low. This is a well-attended church, and
Yeah, fair enough.
we found that or one parking space for every 3 seats in the main hall or the largest hall is adequate. Throughout the city, it's just some churches have
bigger,
go more individual drivers rather than families. There's never going to be a perfect number, and so that's why we don't say you can only have this, no more, no less. I mean, you got to give flexibility for people to, build into their own site.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, my turn. Is the new lot going to be lit? I was looking to see if I could see light standards in there, and
There was photometrics in your plan. I don't
okay.
have it on the presentation, but we did add the caveat that all the fixtures have to be full cutoff. They 16 feet height max over there by the residential, and that 0-foot candles at the property line. Now, just for everyone's interest, 0-foot candles doesn't necessarily mean you won't see any light. It just means you won't have that direct glare causing a shadow onto your property. So just because it says 0-foot candles doesn't mean you can't stand 1,000 feet away and not see a light. That just means you're not going to have light directly shining onto your property.
right. And is there? I should have looked. It says the condition that no greater than 25% illumination within an hour of closing. I would think that the church would probably just want to turn those lights off completely rather than leave them on.
Well, we do have minimum standards for any parking lot for security reasons.
Okay. I'm just thinking of the neighbors.
Right. No, 25% is pretty low. I mean, that gets pretty dim. I mean, but you don't want it pitch black because you don't want it set up to where
and
people could just congregate there in the dark and the neighbors don't know it.
And they can set it so that it's the fixtures that are the furthest away from the existing single family that would remain on.
Yeah, I mean they can be in those interior parking lots.
Right, that's what I mean.
Landscape islands, yeah.
And I do have one question for. And for you, Randy.
Sure.
We normally require a row of pretty closely spaced evergreens as close to the edge of the parking lot as possible, where it's where headlights could shine into the neighboring lots without the cars hitting them by pulling up to the bumpers. Did we specify exactly what that row of evergreens is going to be?
There's a condition that the final landscape plan be approved, so I would look at actual species there. We don't tend not to require that because
understood.
Having a landscape architect do all that is
and they're not going to plant them in the swale, in the creek.
No. My understanding reading that plan is that just denotes existing vegetation.
Okay.
Not future.
Okay.
They're not going to plant anything. They're not allowed to plant anything on somebody else's property.
Sure, understood. I was just seeing that what looks like a long skinny row of bushes right on the northern edge of the lot. But is that what that's depicting?
On the west end, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are
west. I'm sorry. Other north.
The left north.
Yes.
That denotes a row of hedgerow.
Okay, just want to make sure. And I do have one question for the applicant, if you would. Do you have, and we won't hold you to this, but just a ballpark idea of, first of all, when you would want to do the second parking lot expansion? And then the second question is, what are you looking at time-wise for the building expansion?
So if I can answer the second part of your question first. The building expansion, if you see I'm colorblind, so I'm going to have a hard time guessing on these colors.
It's the light color part of the building outline.
The peach color that is closest to the new addition we built there, we hope to initiate and build that in 2026.
Okay.
And that is when we would probably need to maybe add a portion of the new parking,
Okay.
the new parking.
Is
that makes
that going to be used as a school perhaps, or is that more just religious education?
The new
section.
The new section would basically be a children's ministry area.
Ah, okay, but not necessarily a school.
Not necessarily.
School. Okay, and they would have to come before us to for that addition, would they not?
Yeah, no, the condition that I put in there was just for the parking only.
Correct.
But
Okay.
they're probably going to go hand in hand
Okay.
to begin with. But if they want to start the next, just kind of
Sure.
creep up towards the north, I didn't want to bring 30 parking spaces to Planning Commission.
Right, but
and then
the-
30 more parking spaces to Planning Commission.
But the same requirements for if they do the second parking addition, the same requirements for landscaping and so forth would apply.
Yes, this being an A1 zone property,
Right.
they're subject to the landscape section of the zoning code, which is 158, 135.
But we would
And that
be
requires
we
the
would be
screening.
requiring the same row of evergreens and so forth along the western edge.
Yeah,
left
they'll have to
western
screen it.
edge.
If they're not there already, they'd have to screen
Okay.
it the same way.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much. Second helpings, gentlemen. Okay, I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would motion to approve PC 23-8 with the 9 attached conditions.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Let's read the roll.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Loftus.
Yes.
Mr. Self.
Yes, motion carries 4-0, and I'm sure your church is happy to have all those additional people. Good for you. Okay, we are fresh out of public hearings, but we do have a couple of we have one decision item and one subdivision.
Let's do it. These damn chairs. Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask that I recuse myself as I currently own and operate a business within just a couple hundred feet of there.
Well, that sounds logical, and fortunately, we still, and fortunately,
three.
we still have I'm not up here by myself.
Yeah, this case is PUD 02-1. It's a minor modification of the architectural one of the buildings at the Green Town Center. You can see the project's located. It's the center building there that was part of Phase 2. Right now, it contains the Asian Cafe. The front of the building is to the west, and you can see that it has a fountain and some trees off to the side. What the applicant's proposing to do is change the front of the building and then some of the lattice that's around the top of the building on that the bottom left corner. So they're proposing to change the colors slightly to match the style that our house is accustomed to and part of their brand. But you can see that they got rid of the lattice on the roof. They're showing an ephes colors that match the existing or blend in with the existing building. They'll be occupying a good portion of the building, but everything to the east, east of this building is not going to be touched, so they'll be blending into that building. It is a minor change to the architecture. The use is permitted within the PUD. Planning staff took a look at the architecture and all their proposed changes, and we are recommending approval as outlined in your staff report, subject to the 7 conditions contained in the staff report.
Okay,
And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
great, thank you. I'll just throw this open, gentlemen.
I have nothing, sir.
Okay.
I know you have one.
I'm sorry?
I know you have one.
No, I'm just sorry to see the fountain go.
I would make a motion to approve PUD 02-1 mod 11-23 with the 7 attached conditions.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. This one was easy. Want to read the roll, please, ma'am?
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes, motion carries 3-0, and 3 people being a quorum, we have a pass here. Okay, we are down to our very last item, subdivision. This is subdivision decision, S23-6 at the mall.
Yes, as Planning Commission may recall earlier this year, a minor mod was approved to move Dick's Sporting Goods store over to the Elder Beerman to create a House of Dick's. And so the existing Dick's is to be sold or be separated out from the existing lot. So current lot D, which is about a little over 50 acres, would be split into a lot G1 or 1G and a lot 1F. So you can see the new lot I highlighted here in yellow, and that will contain the, this might make it easier to see. That's where, and on this one I did it in red, so it's the same area, but it's where the existing Dick's Sporting Goods store is, and just to create that lot so that it can be sold to a separate buyer outside the mall. All the regulations from lot size and setbacks and frontage and all that meet the conditions in the PUD. Staff doesn't see any reason why this shouldn't be approved and our recommended approval of it.
Thank you. Gentlemen, this sounds like a procedural thing, but if you have questions, I don't even have any questions on this one.
Mr. Chair, I would motion to approve S23-6 with the 3 attached conditions.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and read the roll.
Mr. Loftus?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes. Motion carries 4-0, and we are fresh out of agenda items.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn the December 2023 meeting of the Beavercreek Planning Commission.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
And we are at 8:26. Thank you very much, gentlemen.